Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey there, everybody, how is it going? Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we are talking about a 30-day veterinary marketing challenge. This is going to be a really solid series. It's 4 podcast episodes, and we're going to deep dive into basically setting yourself up for extreme success with your veterinary practice's marketing. So it's going to be a fantastic episode, a great series. I'm very, very excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome. So if you're following along here, I'm going to be posting prompts in the Veterinary Marketing Nerds group. So if you're not a member of the Veterinary Marketing Nerds, you should absolutely sign up for that. A few other things that I'd like to mention before we get started. First, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes or Google Play or Spotify or wherever you receive your podcasts. That way you don't miss an episode. I'd also like to mention that this episode is also being sponsored by myself. If you haven't done so already, be sure to get that Veterinary Marketing Planner book. You can go on Amazon and search for Brandon Bashirs. I created a 12-month digital marketing planner. And if you haven't bought it, check it out. People say that it's great. I think it's awesome. I use it for all of my marketing. It helps you to build basic outlines and create content and figure out exactly how to put all of those digital marketing activities together so that you're successful as possible. Not only that, it helps you to track and manage everything that you're working on too. So check it out. Go to Amazon.com, or if you go to veterinarmarketingpodcast.com/planner, you can get, I did a training on how to create a digital marketing plan as well. All right, so let's jump into today's episode. We have a 30-day marketing challenge. This is going to help you to get very clear on what you should be doing, how to grow, how to measure your success, how to make sure you're being successful, what to do to tweak everything so that it is successful. And I think it's going to be really, really great. So the first thing that we really need to focus on is the setup and setting yourself up for success. That's what today's episode is all about. We're going to also talk about defining your offers in the next episode. Then we're going to be talking about deployment of ads and execution of the plan and everything like that. And then we're going to talk about evaluation and optimization. So it's going to be 4 specific episodes, a week apart. So 28 days, basically 30 days, close enough. And it'll help you to get very, very clear on success and how to create growth in your veterinary practice. So let's talk about step number 1. Today we're going to be talking about baselines, tracking, reporting, and client avatars, because these are very important. This is called the pre-work in digital marketing campaigns. And when we're doing campaigns and when I'm working with clients and working on agency clients and things, that's really what we need to get clear on first. So if I was to go to a client and say, hey, I'm going to just create some stuff and put it out there, that wouldn't work for them. They wouldn't be excited about that. And there's a few reasons for that. Number 1, we don't know who it's for. We don't know what it is that we're selling. We don't know how we're going to manage and track success. If I said, hey, I'll run some ads for your veterinary practice, and then I ran just something that I put out there and it got 57 likes, and that was all that it got. Wow, look at this. This is amazing. It got 57 likes. Here, aren't you excited? You wouldn't necessarily be excited because that's not what you're necessarily wanting to track and measure and things like that. So it's very important that we set up baselines so we can tell if we're being successful. Very important that we set up tracking so that we're able to measure and monitor all of these important KPIs that we're going to be using. It's important that we set up reporting, not just that we can go pull reports, but actually set up reports and get in there so that they're sent to you so that you're able to look at them and use them. It's amazing and staggering how many people are actually, collecting data and putting out ads, but they never actually go in and log in and look at their numbers. And also it can be a little bit intimidating. So you need to have reporting set up in a way that is meaningful and easy to access and that you go in and check regularly. And then we're going to define the client that we're trying to reach. And the ideal client is extremely, extremely important. This is what it all comes down to. When you're doing any kind of marketing, you need to figure out who you want to be attracting to your practice. Because if you're going to put all of this time and energy and effort into trying to attract clients, you better hope that you're attracting the right kinds of clients. So let's jump into this. Number one, baselines. So how do we set baselines in our veterinary practice? Typically, what I would like to do is go into a few things. First, I will go into Facebook, and I will go back and look at the 28-day period for timeframes. And you can go back further and set baselines that are, basically, the longer back you go, the more consistent data you're going to have typically as far as what average posts do and things like that. I would say if we're going back, I think 28 days is suitable for what we're trying to do, specifically with Facebook. With your website, going back and looking at data that is specifically probably over the past 12 months would be ideal. You're going to have seasonal differences. You're going to have things in your practice that are going to stand out. So that's, when we're looking at your analytics for your website, I think going back 12 months is probably kind of the way to do it, just because you're going to have those seasonal differences. So that being said, what we want to do is we want to do typically the top of funnel type analytics that we're setting baselines for, so that we can be measuring and monitoring the success of the content that we're putting out, how many people are coming to our practice, where they're coming from, and things like that. So typically I like to put this into a Google Docs spreadsheet, and I actually have an amazing dashboard. If you go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/dashboard, I'll link to the Google Sheet there. You can also go to the podcast episode and check out the show notes for episode 156, and I will be sure to link it there. I'm just making a note to link my dashboard. I just thought about that. But this dashboard is epic in that it has so many data points that you can be tracking and measuring and monitoring. We don't want to get too heavy into putting so much data into spreadsheets, though. I find when you spend too much time putting data into spreadsheets, it just becomes a full-time job. So it needs to be useful information, and it's something that you should do every once in a while just to see where you are, see where you stand. But these baselines, I think, are important, especially if it's not something you've ever done before. So for Facebook, I like to do video views. I like to do number of likes and I typically will be tracking this week over week, just because I think that's a good data point. If you do it daily, it's just a bunch of work. Your typical post, what does it do for likes, comments, shares? How many views does your page get? And how many messages does your Facebook page get? And that's about it for Facebook. So we have messages, we have page views, we have video views, we have comments, likes, shares, and that should cover you pretty well. And then for your traffic, let's talk about that. So for your website, not Facebook, but for a website, you should be tracking total number of page views. And I like to do this on a daily basis. What's your average daily page views? Or weekly, either one's fine, but I think week is a bit of a long period of time for your veterinary practice. And then I like to see what's the average pages viewed per visitor. I like to see what is the bounce rate, what is the time on site, and then I also like to see where is the traffic coming from. So acquisition inside of Google Analytics, and you go through there and you see what percentage of traffic is coming from which network. So you're going to have referrals, which are like Facebook and Instagram and social media like that. You might have other local businesses that might have links to your site. You might have organic traffic. Hopefully you do have organic traffic, and it'll break it down typically in Google and Yahoo and Bing and things like that. You'll be able to click on Google and you could see the search terms, but most of the browsers that are being used now have disallowed analytics to track the search term that's driving the person there, which is interesting. So you need to make sure that you have Google Webmaster Tools set up. That way you can see how you're ranking for certain keywords and things. But once you have those specific things down, I think that's a good amount of analytics information from Google Analytics. The other things that you want to know is how many phone calls are you getting from your website, how many web forms are being submitted from your website. And I know that phone calls are not an exact science, but if you have mobile websites, you should be able to tell If you're getting clicks on your mobile links, you can set that up with Tag Manager. And at least you're going to understand, typically what is happening inside the website, how many people are contacting you from the website, and set those baselines so that you have those as a way to understand this is what I'm typically getting. And if things go up or things go down, you at least know, hey, it's going a direction and what can I do to fix it? Or what can I do to continue that trend? So that is the tracking that I think we need to have. If you're doing Instagram marketing, I would suggest having relevant KPIs that you set for baseline. So how many posts are you doing each week? What's your average post like? How many likes do you get? How many comments do you get? And then typically how many views do you get on stories? And then if you're doing IGTV, you can see the analytics from IGTV as well. But I just typically think that that's kind of the good rule of thumb to find out, are the posts that you're doing working? Are the posts that you're doing getting engagement? Things like that. We need to measure and set those baselines. So what kind of tracking tools do you need to have set up? If you don't have access to these things, you absolutely need to have, you can get analytics from the social channels inside of Facebook, inside of Instagram, and then you need to have Google Analytics set up. And I like to have Tag Manager set up as well so that you can get a bunch of great pixels and pixel data on your websites as well. So, Google Analytics is really, really important to have set up on your website. It's also very important to have pixels installed on your website, which we install in Tag Manager. And actually, I did a training on how to do that inside of the Veterinary Marketing Nerds group. It is a video that I put up there. All right. So once we have the ability to track those different key points, it's important that we then set up reporting in a way that we can take that data and then use it in a meaningful way. So there's a tool that's called Data Studio, and Data Studio is great because you can pull in basically any of the Google products, but one thing you cannot input in without a third-party plugin is you can't put in your Facebook dashboards in there. So Facebook is unfortunately something you're going to have to jump in and take a look at manually. Same thing with Instagram. If you wanted to use a tool like Sprout Social or other different tools like Hootsuite or MeetEdgar, these tools have specific dashboards and reportings that you can export. But Data Studio is just a great way to apply your most meaningful KPIs when it comes to your website with your Google Ads, your YouTube channel if you're doing anything on YouTube, and then it allows you to put those in a very good-looking graphic that it doesn't take a bunch of time and it doesn't take a bunch of clicks to get through. And so it's really, really cool. And you also get a URL for it so that you just have to click that URL. You don't have to log in and then click the different reports and the different segments and everything that you want to see so that you're just getting the data that's ready to look at right away. It doesn't take any editing or manipulating to figure out what's going on there. The other thing that I think you need to really make sure and understand is that you have any kind of confirmation page that you have set up, as far as if you have any guides or if you have any confirmation buttons or if you have any buttons on the website that produce leads, you need to make sure that the different actions that you have, and hopefully it's set up in a way so that if somebody submits a question or if they submit a form or if they're submitting information, it takes them to a confirmation page because that's typically the easiest way to do that. But you need to have conversion pixels set up, both for Google Ads and also for Facebook or Instagram or wherever you're sending traffic for. You need to have these conversion pixels set up so that when they fire, it's going to attribute that conversion to the specific place that you're driving traffic from. So Tag Manager is extremely important for that. And be sure to check out that video I did. It was actually on Friday the 24th. If you go into the Veterinary Marketing Nerds group in the future, it was April 24th, 2019 is when I did that training. Taught you how to set up Google Tag Manager, how to place pixels, and how to set up conversion tracking for both Facebook and then Google Ads. But I think that the most important thing is you're understanding what's going on and you're able to apply meaning to the data and understand what's important to you and to your practice. I think that when you are working on creating metrics that are meaningful. Typically, the metrics that are easiest to track are going to be generally the top of funnel numbers. You're also going to want to know in practice and have a way to input this into your data as well as how many new clients do you have coming into your practice, where are they coming from, and really make it a point to understand where these people are coming from. Because, there's no, especially because it's a in-person brick and mortar business, there's no way to with 100% certainty get tracking to work, because unless you're collecting payment on your website for services, and that's the only way you do services, there's just no way for the tracking to get perfect. And so we need to make sure that your front desk staff and your managers are constantly saying, where did you hear about us from? Where did you come in? Where was the last place that you came in from? And make sure that all of the channels that you're using are shown up in that question that they ask. So if you're doing, let's say you're doing postcards, text messaging, you have Google ads running and Facebook ads running. You need to make sure that each one of those is an input into your practice management software. That way you're able to track it and understand where it's coming from. But I think that you need to make sure if you have anybody that is going into your practice management software and you don't know where they came from, that also needs to be a KPI that you're tracking as well. Just because you have to know where people are coming from, what are the most profitable traffic channels for you, and what is producing the best ROI for your veterinary practice. All right, so the frequency with which you should be checking your reporting, I think, is weekly. You need to do kind of a week review, figure out what tweaks you're going to make and what's going to work, what did work, what didn't work, and then learn from everything you're doing. The only way for you to learn from what you're doing is to, again, manage and measure it. So I think that that's very, very important. So the next thing that you need to do is you need to figure out, once you have all of that pre-work set up with the baseline set, you have tracking set up so that you're able to track things, and you have reporting set up so that you're able to read the tracking that's happening, it's important that next you really get clear about who is your ideal customer or who is your ideal client and what do they look like, what are the kinds of people that you're going to be attracting into your practice. Are you going to be attracting people that have multiple pets, single pets, dog owners, cat owners, specific breeds of cats, specific dogs breeds? What is it exactly that you're looking to attract? I think the best thing to do typically is to go through your favorite clients and say, what makes these people similar? I think that when you're working on, okay, we're going to figure out, not only just the demographics of what they're doing, but also the psychographics. And psychographics are different because those are the qualitative things. Demographics are the quantitative things. So sure, we can know that we're targeting women who are 35 to 40 years old, single parents who work in these types of jobs, right? Those are all of the demographic data points. And you need to really get clear on that because that's going to help you to get your ad targeting done really well. It's going to help you to create language in your ads that are going to speak to these groups of people, language in the content that's going to speak to these group of people. But you also need to understand the psychographics that are taking place here. So what are their biggest fears? What are their biggest concerns? What do they worry about? What is the biggest pain points that they have? What are the biggest challenges that these people have? How can you, as a veterinary practice, really fix these pain points and these challenges? A lot of times, especially if you have people that, let's say you're going to be targeting people who treat their pet like a family. It's very different from somebody who's just, training their dog out in the backyard, and it's just as an outside dog who's not really a part of the family. And if you had to choose one of the types of clients that you like working with, my guess would be that you probably like the group of people who treat their pet like family. So those people, they're concerned that they want to make sure that their dog is living the best possible quality of life that they possibly can, that they get the best treatment as possible, that they see their dog as a partner in their life, and that they want them to be around as long as possible. So they're going to do everything that they can to make sure that their dog is happy and healthy and well taken care of. That's a very, very specific group of people. So there's things that they say, the way that they talk, the language that they use, the worries that they have, the concerns that they have, how they feel, what kind of status they feel as the people that are doing these different procedures, how it makes them be seen by their friends and their family. All of these things are very, very important. And just getting clear about that and taking a step back from your business, because I know that it's oftentimes hardest to try and figure out what to do for your own business just because you're working in it all the time. So take a step back and pretend like you're giving a friend some advice. I find that this is actually pretty helpful. So when you go through, let's say you were at a veterinary meeting, like whether it's a CE event or a manager's meeting or wherever you are, and you had a friend that said, hey, you know what, I'm bummed because I have not been having good clients come in. I want to get new clients. I want good clients. What would you suggest to them? What are the best kind of clients that you would suggest and that you would hope that would be coming into your friends? What do they think about? What do they worry about? When you have your clients come in and they're asking you questions and they're your favorite ones, what kind of questions do they ask? Because you can get a lot on what they're thinking about and what they're worrying about and their biggest pain points just from the questions that they ask. Additionally, figuring out what the reception staff is dealing with a lot, with what are their most common questions, what are the things that they're wishing that, the customers are wishing that would be done in your practice. So, like let's say that you're open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, and it's not convenient hours. And so you have pet owners who are calling and says, I'm sorry, I'm working all day. I can't drop them off before 4 p.m. Is there any way we could do after hours drop-in? That's a pain point. That's a thing that they're worrying about. So figuring out who your clients are and who your ideal clients are is ultimately one of, I think, the most important things that you need to set up in your marketing, because when you're very clear on what it is that you're trying to achieve for these people, and that what is the problem that you're solving for these people, what are the pain points that you're solving for these people, what is the emotional state of the people that you're trying to attract and target, you're going to be able to get very, very clear on the language that you should be using, how you should be talking to these people, how you're showing up consistently in social media, in your Facebook posts, and it's going to make a huge difference for your practice. So let's recap really quickly. I think that hopefully, if you're going to be doing this challenge over the next 4 weeks, I think that breaking it into bite-sized pieces is going to be helpful, and that it'll probably get done if it's not too overwhelming. So the homework for this episode: number one, you need to set baselines. What is the normal amount of likes that your posts get? What is the normal amount of engagement that your posts are getting on the social media channels that you're engaging in? Number two is your website baselines. What is the normal amount of traffic and visitors? Where are these traffic sources coming from? Typically, what are the actions that are happening? Practice management baselines. How many new clients are coming in? I would say on a weekly basis. Where are these clients coming from? And what is, I guess, probably the average revenue per client would be very important to know too. Once you have those baselines set up, make sure that tracking is set up. If you're not able to get the information that we just talked about, make sure that tracking's set up. You need to have analytics set up. You need to have Tag Manager set up. You should have Google My Business set up. You should also have Webmaster Tools set up, which is done through Tag Manager as well. And that way you're going to be able to track and attribute your traffic and understand better what is happening. Once that is finished, you're going to also want to have reporting set up. So not only do you need to be tracking it, but you need to use it. Otherwise, it's not in any value to you. So where are you going to be reporting? I would highly suggest checking out Google Data Studio. I would also suggest setting up automatic reports inside of Google Analytics. And then you're just going to have to manually check Facebook and Instagram, unless you're using a third-party tool like Hootsuite or MeetEdgar or other social posting tools. And then once that's set up, you have your reporting set up that you're going to be checking on a weekly basis, just for outliers, for improvements. Once that's set up, you need to get clear on who it is that you're trying to target. I would suggest setting up 2 or 3 client avatars. That way, you're very clear on who it is that you're targeting, what kind of language you're going to be using in the content that you're going to be planning, and things like that. So if you have any questions or comments or need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope that you also head on over to Veterinary Marketing Nerds Facebook group. If you go to facebook.com/groups/the Veterinary Marketing Nerds, you'll be able to get additional help and insight there, and we'll be posting this challenge in there as well. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.